What a weekend in politics it has been. We have a lot to go through in this segment where I'll chronologically document what it is that's been taking place across the country in America that's been notable politics-wise. Starting with Trump during a presser saying something just absolutely insane, and then getting to Trump's nightmare, which is that across the country we are seeing mass rallies opposing him and some really thrilling events. And as I said in the previous segment, if this is the energy already against him and we just started, can you imagine when Americans have a chance to vote again? And we get our, what was the redemption for democracy after our major failure as a country last November. Now, of course, he's not going to be on the ballot again, but his ability to govern and the Republicans in the House and Senate coming in the midterms, hopefully we'll see a resounding rejection. If you'll take that down real quick, Jaden, we'll get to that, which is really notable and something insane that he said. But first, just to go through chronologically, Friday afternoon before he left, he had this event that we mostly covered, but I did want to touch on Pete Hegseth and his whatever you want to call this over Trump.
Under the previous administration, we looked like fools. Not anymore. President Trump has reestablished American leadership. The F-47 is part of it. And Mr. President, thank you for having the courage to do it and leading the way for all our warfighters.
It's not even the worst that we've seen from, and we already addressed the new plane, fine. But this is more about, with all these people, they have to do this to Trump for him to be happy. They have to do this at every event. Mr. President, you're a genius. It's like, come on, don't act like our military wasn't already going to get these new planes. It's not some great feat on the part of Trump. So yeah, they have to do whatever that was that Trump was doing. For our podcast listeners, you didn't see the clip. They have to make Trump feel pleasure. Now going on to the presser that I think started off the weekend on Friday as he left to go golfing with a bang. He claimed that he didn't sign something that his signature is on. If you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button. Again, we have a lot to go through in this segment, including the rallies against Trump.
It doesn't sound like this judge, who the DOJ is arguing with today about the deportation flights. He wants to know why the proclamation was signed in the dark, his words, and why people were rushed onto planes.
Because we want to get criminals out of our country, number one, and I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it. But Marco Rubio's done a great job, and he wanted them out, and we go along with that.
Okay, this is insane. This is absolutely mind-boggling because, number one, his signature is on it. So someone else is signing the signature. But this comes right after he's been making a big deal of auto pens being used to sign things for presidents, which is something that happens. But he said that was proof that Joe Biden's pardons were illegitimate. He then said he revoked Biden's pardons because of that, which we don't even know that they were signed with that. But just the fact that Biden had used auto pens, which is a way to sign something for a president where they give you the thumbs up, but they don't actually go through. And if there's a lot of piece of papers, they don't have to sign everything. And sort of like on a DocuSign, you can just go, yes, 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 yes. And it's that, but he said that maybe the fact that a pardon was signed that way, which we don't even know that, but if it were, because we don't know, I'm going to revoke the pardon, which is not even legal. He can't do that, doesn't have authority to, but it's another way that he wants to spark fear for some of the people he mentioned, like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and others. But CNN notes the proclamation, which was him signing the Alien Enemies Act, invoking that, appears in the Federal Register with Trump's signature at the bottom. So now is Trump saying that his subverting of due process with the deportation, that now we've learned, I went through this in a different segment, the innocence of one of the people, potentially multiple of the people who were swept up in this because they threw out our system of laws, that wasn't even signed by him, and by his logic, that would mean it's not legitimate. If this were Biden, they would say, he's gone. It's over. That's what they would say. If he said, I didn't sign that, and then his signature was on it, they would call that the greatest proof of the deep state ever. But this won't even barely be a story across many outlets. Continue on with this presser.
Be backdated, right?
Are you all concerned that anyone on those deportation flights on Saturday was not a gang member or does not belong in that prison? Are you concerned about
Well, they
that?
checked them very carefully. There's some bad people on those flights.
So how do you know that the people you sent to an El Salvadoran prison camp who are now being abused, how do you know that they were actually the violent gang members that you assert them to be? Because now we have compelling evidence that 2 of them are not, and are people who had legal asylum claims and entered the country legally. They didn't break a law. And he says, no, they were vetted. And when Tom Homan, as I showed you in the segment, was asked about it, his response was, if you've seen the clip, you know what I'm referencing. Then on Putin, Trump says this.
Did you give Putin a deadline for the ceasefire?
Not a deadline, but I think we'll have one. I think, they're going at it pretty heavy right now, as you probably saw, both of them. But I think we'll have it done fairly soon.
Fairly soon, he says. Well, yeah, you said, okay, I've already addressed it. Let me say what I'm about to say after this one.
Why would you sanctions on Russia after Putin rejected your ceasefire offer?
He didn't reject anything, and they do have sanctions. They have a lot of sanctions. They have just about more sanctions than anybody.
So then he says that Putin didn't reject his ceasefire. Trump, on the call, said that he got a partial ceasefire. Putin, that night and since, has been doing a bunch of strikes that violated what was supposedly the partial ceasefire. So that thing was nothing. And then he didn't accept a full ceasefire, even though Ukraine, without conditions, did accept a full ceasefire because they're the ones who want peace, despite Trump saying the opposite. Russia is the one who clearly wants war. And Trump says, no, they didn't reject anything. Well, that's not true. Then Witkoff, who we talked about extensively in a segment with his crazy interview with Tucker Carlson, where he proves how little he understands or cares to properly communicate this conflict, on one of the Sunday shows, had this to say as we continue through your tour through the weekend of politics.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Jeanne Shaheen, says this. When Trump asked for the killing to stop, Putin refused. Putin does not want peace, and it is time for the president to realize that. Are you convinced he wants peace?
I feel that he wants peace. The president had 2 very productive calls this week, or last week, I should say. One with President Zelensky, one with President Putin. I sat and listened to both of them.
So what do you have to say that the small thing that you said that you got from those calls didn't actually end up manifesting and Putin violated it immediately, Mr. Witkoff? Than this?
Do you feel like there's a misconception, though, about the characterization of him as a tyrant or someone whose political opponents often disappear or die?
I think in my 68 years on this earth, I've never, ever seen a situation where there isn't 2 sides to a story. It's just never as black and white as people want to portray.
Hey, Steve, say it about Hitler. Never. Actually, no, I agree. There's always 2 sides of a story. Just one of the sides might be wrong. One of the sides might not be reasonably concerned about their legitimate claims to a territory. One of them might have a justification for mass murder that's not legitimate. So they have a side of the story, I guess. It's just terrible and you won't acknowledge that. That's a problem, Mr. Witkoff. So now we get to the Trump nightmare. This far from people really being able to campaign in any sense, there is real energy, packed arenas for this fight against the oligarchy tour that Bernie Sanders is doing. And right now he's being joined by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez across many stops. And throughout this weekend, they have been holding these rallies as follows.
And that is why, in my view, there's probably nothing more important that we can do than overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And let me tell you how bad it is. Let me tell you how bad it is. If any Republican wants to vote their conscience, And if any Republican in the House or the Senate says, you know, maybe it is not a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and then cut Medicaid and education and nutrition, if that person were to stand up and say, I have a problem with that, you know what Musk would do? Musk in 5 minutes would say, we are going to primary you. Your political life is over. That is not democracy. And our fight is to make sure that we remain a democracy. One person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections.
Again, this is so rare. That's why I'm describing it in the terms that I am. This is so rare that this far out from an election, which is normally when you start to see sort of campaign type stuff, events happen. This far, people are already so pissed off, justifiably so, at what we're seeing. Many people who will admit they either didn't vote, voted for Trump, voted third party, and are seeing, and I hate that we have to see it. I wish we could have listened to the predictions, as myself and a bunch of people were making, about what would have come. But now that people are seeing it, they're fired up. We're hearing Republicans confront Republicans at town halls across the country, and we're seeing rallies like this and packed. Sizes, I showed you a video of the crowd in a recent story, but sizes of events that even in a campaign season you rarely see. And this is just not even a presidential candidate, just people saying we're opposed to this oligarchy. And when he referenced a Republican speaking out against the House GOP budget proposal, it's not going to happen. But if they were, here's what they would be speaking out against. If you combine the cuts to spending, as I told you before, with the cuts in taxes for wealthy folks disproportionately, you see that the bottom earners are losing money in this bargain. And as you get richer, you're gaining a hell of a lot of money in this bargain. So a person who ran as a working class hero, wrongfully, fraudulently, in a fake manner, is now doing exactly what we told people he was going to do, which is fight, not for you, but for the tip top. Here's more from Bernie.
In our form of government, unless you are a coward, you don't sue the media because they report on things you don't like.
Well, then call Trump a coward, because that is what he's been doing over and over again, bringing forward a brazen assault on the First Amendment. As I said, AOC also appearing at these rallies in a different city.
But I'm here to remind you that we are not powerless in this moment. People are starting to put the pieces together. And ironically, the most divisive forces in our country are actually bringing more of us together than before. And that's important. And I want to let you all know, in every single stop that Bernie and I have had in the last couple days, we were in Nevada a couple days ago. We were in Greeley, Colorado, way out there in Colorado. We went to Denver. Every single stop has completely blown out all attendance projections. 3,200 people in Las Vegas. Out in Greeley, we went to a Republican congressman's district, Gabe Evans, who, you know, he just got elected. He just got elected. Usually your first 3 months on the job, you're on your best behavior. This guy hasn't held a town hall once. So we said, you know what, let's go out there. We'll hold our own town hall.
And the reason he's not holding a town hall is because Republicans, when they show up to town halls, are being confronted over and over again. And that's what AOC touched on with the "we're not powerless" message is a really important one. Because I know a lot of you out there are going to have, as I do, moments of discouragement in seeing that we're really only at the beginning of the Trump administration. He's already done so much damage, and we're seeing the damage that is to come. But knowing how many people feel the way we do now, and over the course of seeing more of this damage, will feel this way and will want an alternative, that should motivate us, excite us to be that alternative or to be a part of that alternative. And there is power in that. And Elon can funnel so much money and skew our democratic process so much. But at the end of the day, it is people who are going to have to go in there and place these votes. And we can be more influential than even the dollars of Elon if we do it right. John Ossoff held a rally for a Republic event in Georgia and had this to say. He's a Democratic senator.
And see, this is why things don't work for ordinary people. It's not because of trans kids or woke college students. It's not. It's not because of our new arch enemy, Canada. The corruption is why you pay a fortune for prescriptions. The corruption is why your insurance claim keeps getting denied. The corruption is why hedge funds get to buy up all the houses in your neighborhood and Congress doesn't do anything about it. See, this is why so many have lost faith in our system. Because the system really is rigged. But Trump's not unrigging it. He's re-rigging it for himself.
Exactly right. I think that's an important message to win over people who hesitantly, and I actually have an example of when I say people are changing their minds, a focus group where Michigan swing voters are already saying, I voted for Trump, but I shouldn't have. And there are going to be a lot of those people, and we're going to say, damn it. Right? I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be, but welcome home. Come back. That sounded very culty. Welcome home. Get in. We're going to, okay, stop. Focus. And as those people do see this, I think it's important that we have a message that accepts some of their premises that don't violate any of ours. Meaning, if someone believes they voted for Trump because they thought he was going to unrig the system, okay, the system is rigged. But here's, even without having to change your premise there, here's how Trump is the one rigging it even worse. Okay, it was rigged before for the powerful, for the wealthy, for the well-connected. But let's kind of get our sights on how he's exacerbating that like we've rarely seen in the course of American history. He really is creating a system that is for and by the oligarchy. And that, I think, is going to be a compelling message. Now, we need the right leaders with the right message to deliver that. But if they do, I think something really hopeful is ahead. Even this early in, I have that to say. Because I'm on a positivity kick today. What the heck? And here's the focus group I referenced.
Recent election, but might be having some misgivings. Please play that.
By like putting these tariffs in and terrorizing the world, now things are just going to get more expensive.
I feel like a lot of his actions have just been disruptive and creating chaos.
I was voting for him based off of the economy the first time around, and I'm seeing a significant decline.
So I think when we think about Trump voters, a lot of people in their head, they concoct the image of people I talked to at rallies, right? Hardcore supporters of Trump. The people who made the difference in the election were some people who stayed home and some people who voted for Trump who aren't like that, right? They're not wearing a MAGA hat. They had those reasons. Now, we have to express, because we get to feel things too, that, right? That's kind of what came out while I was watching, which is you're off put by the tariffs, me too, but did you see how much he talked about tariffs?
It's the most beautiful word there is. Tariff. A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. We will phase in a system of universal baseline tariffs. The word tariff, properly used, is a beautiful word. One of the most beautiful words I've ever heard. It's music to my ears. I think it's more beautiful than love. The word tariff. Tariffs. Taxes, not on you, by the way. The taxes are on you. Taxes are on other countries that have been ripping us off for years. We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to be a cost to you. It's going to be a cost to another country. We're going to defend the American worker with tariffs. And they'll have to pay, and they'll pay hundreds of billions of dollars in pretty stiff tariffs. We're going to be doing a lot of things, but we're lowering taxes. We're going to use tariffs very, very wisely, you know.
tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. I love tariffs. We're going to do tariffs, 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 tariffs. And then economists were warning the impact of his economic proposal. So I do wish, and I do feel some resentment that the clear signs he was going to do what he was going to do, you didn't see to those focus group members. But now that you do see them, welcome home. And we can do this together. Because so much damage is being done. Latest headline, CNN reports, dismantling the Department of Education, which Trump has now fully engaged in, will strip resources from disabled children, parents, and advocates say, among so many other things. And on the subject of the Department of Education, a MAGA individual, said, Department of Education, you're fired. And showed the teachers union head a gif of her doing something. I don't know. But the point is, he said, Department of Education, you're fired. So he's rooting on Trump here. Little eensy weensy problem. While talking about education and celebrating the dismantling of the federal institution tasked with uplifting our education, he used the wrong your. Oh, and then that's the wrong time to use the wrong your, or the wrong your. And someone corrected him. Someone corrected him with the community notes and cited the dictionary. That was their source. Use the wrong your. Oh, I have to put a source? Dictionary, English. And that's just brutal. But some people right now are rooting this on. I think as people see the effects, they won't. And I keep wanting to repeat this because I never want to feel like we're, yay. It is absolutely horrific that people are having to feel this. And it is not people who just voted for Trump who are going to feel it, obviously. But all we can do is make sure when people realize, and we have to make sure they correct it correctly, blame, because sometimes that is done wrong, and then motivate. And that's going to be our task. And I think we can do it. And there's so much ahead on that front. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you want to get the bonus show, you can do it by clicking the join button below.